So what's up, guys? So anyway, haven't seen you guys in a long time. I don't see anybody. I talk to you guys. So anyway, I just decided to grab these two and stick them up here for fun. I opened the Alley Viper today. I got him from Amazon, and so I decided to troop build Alley Viper and decided to troop build the Crimson Guard. And the Alley Viper, the way he stands with his shield, he almost looks like he just got done searching a whole block, and he's over here briefing the Crimson Guard, saying that we just checked the last house from room to room. Duke hasn't turned up yet, but I'm sure we'll find him, and along with him, we'll find Flint and Scarlet too. But anyway, I don't know if I obviously know Cobra's not real, but I know if they were real, that they'd probably have a really good dental plan, and I know if they were real, they would probably have all their gear made in America. And that's actually where I'd like to have a shot at making the folding knives for the Alley Vipers with orange scales like this one here. No, really, I'll just move these guys aside for a minute and I'll talk about what I did here. So anyway, this is the old knife here. This is the old blade. So this is what it would look like with the old blade. The old blade's like an 1/8 inch thick. Now I haven't changed the spacer one bit, but I went ahead and put a new blade in that's approximately 3/16 of an inch thick. And so this knife here, I use this knife for a myriad of tasks. I carried it almost exclusively for a whole year. I mean, I used it to cut cut boxes open. I used it like a box cutter. I mean, I used it for everything because I wanted to see and I wanted to show how my how my knives could perform in everyday tasks and how well they can hold up, being that it's something that I just made from scratch. And I didn't have anything cut out. I made it all by hand, from scratch with no outside help. And so if you can see this, I had two spacers kind of centering that in the center. Now those two spacers are in here. I spent probably like a good hour. I probably stood here for about 2 hours grinding those down on a piece of sandpaper and getting them to fit here. And I went ahead, once I got the thickness from here, I calipered this and it matched that. Then I went ahead and installed it. But I went ahead and did the knife. So here's the knife. It's D2, and that's the blade. And you can see how much higher of a grind that is. And I wanted to make something that fully filled out this frame. Now, I goofed up a little bit. You notice you don't see the ricasso here. And I'm going to show you what I did. That little notch in there is actually the first hole that I drilled. And what happened was I got too happy on the grinding. And I ground down this face a little too much. So I decided rather than starting over again, I decided to drill it again. And since I ground the blade so high, I went ahead and had to put a new divot in there. And that's actually a small torque screw that I fit into the front there for the detent. So instead of having the detent close in to the pivot, it's on the edge. And then I had to do a little bit of work here to make a little bevel so this blade would actually let this blade out. So it turned out I think it turned out pretty good. It has like a nice like a very I don't know, like a kind of a grotesque clip point, I guess you can say. But its size and thickness is now befitting to this frame. And so it does kind of deviate to one side slightly, and if you can see that. If I was able to really, really torque this down, I'm sure I can get it to straighten out somewhat because the lock's pushing that in. But I'll show you something interesting here. Okay? No play upside down here, up and down. No play side to side. I got that lock up pretty good, and I'll show you here too. Even with minimal engagement, the spine whack test did not close this knife, so I seem to actually got a very sound angle on it when I ground it. Now I didn't take any of that scale off the inside there, but I was kind of able to do, when I created the recess to go into the stop pin up here, I was actually able to kind of aesthetically blend that in to where even though I goofed up and you can't see the ricasso, now it comes out here. So it does kind of have a little bit of a Bowie look on the bottom, even though that is a little bit of a boo-boo I did. And then rather than putting a thumb stud, I decided to put a fuller on one side. Now see this side over here, you can see where I attempted to use my stamp. And there are some heavy scratches. It's what you call a Blanchard cut piece of steel. It's not a precision ground piece of steel, nor is it scaled. So it had a lot of deep scratches in it for where they treated it at the plant. So there's some deep scratches in it that, you know, I mean, I probably could have worked a little harder to get those deeper scratches out. But that's where I try to put my name in one side with my new stamp. And my new stamp just doesn't push the steel out. So I had to do it the old Harbor Freight stamp way. I got 2 W's there where I would, you know, it's hard to stamp on the inside of a curvature, okay? I'm not used to that. That's why. And I probably could have actually slowed down a bit and got that fuller to look a little nicer. There's some deep scratches up here, but at a time I made a little blemish here from when I actually stuck a grindstone and ground that out so I can create a little mini ramp to let that out from the detent from the detent pen. But the actual ricasso here kind of, I mean, the front of the bolster of the knife here, the frame kind of covers all that up. So it does look okay. It looks better than I thought it would look. Because well, the ricasso's missing. They're going to notice that. Well, it doesn't really. I can't really notice it. So there's a couple goof ups here where I tried to clean up the fuller. I slipped a little bit. I was able to kind of wipe some of that out with some real fine paper, sandpaper. But all in all, not bad. And as far as actually not having it centered, the actual natural centering of it's pretty good. I was a little nervous because I used the reamer on the pivot hole after. In other words, I drill that second hole after I'd ground the initial edge. So rather than chop my hand off and get a helicoptering edge, I went ahead and put it in a vise. So it's a little bit of a freehand on the reaming, but all in all, I think I got that blade pretty straight. I mean, it locks up. It locks up pretty straight. And I couldn't get the pivot quite to bottom out. In other words, I guess you could say there is a little bit of travel on the pivot pin that's still left. I got it real tight. It's not moving now, but I had to grind down the pivot pin, and at the female end and the male end, I had to grind those down a bit. I don't see it moving out in the future, but it's okay. And I kind of smothered the white grease on the pivot. But all in all, like I say, you know, it passes the spine wax, so it's going pretty good. But you know, not a bad deal, not a bad thing. It turned out pretty good. And I don't know, as far as sharpening goes, I sharpened with the slack belt. Let's see if I mean, it was cutting paper a little earlier. I might have to work on the sharpening a bit. Let's see. I might have to sharpen this a little. Okay, so sharpen it a little bit. I might have to sharpen this a little more. I mean, I could sharpen this a little bit more. I could stand to sharpen it more. On the on the actual, see, it's more like tearing now. Well, I did have it cutting a little bit earlier when I took it off the belt. Yeah, there you go. I got a little bit of a cut there. But I mean, it's not a bad looking edge. The edge that I put on it looks good. It's just that I got to cut a little more straighter. Let's see if I can get a good cut. I mean, it cuts. It cuts. It's not, you know, I'm not gonna cut a handkerchief floating down the air like a samurai sword, but it cuts. It's you know, and I got a little bit. I got it pretty far in. I had a little bit of a gap there. I went for a second run at closing those points off. I mean, closing that edge off more so I can make a better edge easier. I just decided to take what I can get because I didn't want to mess up the edge or the symmetry, so I went ahead and just stuck it on the belt. And I got a pretty, for what it is, I got a pretty decent edge on it. But this is an old knife that I did. And I don't know, the last video, my channel doesn't get watched much here, but my last video I did, I got a case because I was trying to be like the cool guys, where I have a case with a bunch of knives in it. And, and I decided, well, why not get a case, because I already have a knife collection, where I put the knives that I make in it. Okay? So I decided, well, you know, I was listening to Jim Rohn, who's a motivational speaker, who used to be a motivational speaker for Nightingale Conant, worked with Earl Nightingale, and you know, Bob Proctor was a guy who used to speak for him, and Brian Tracy also spoke for him. And yeah, it's he said that write down all the goals you want to do and put a amount of years on them. Like, say college would be a 4-year goal, becoming a millionaire would be a 5-year goal, getting a passport would be a 1-year goal, you know, maybe go to the Grand Canyon would be a 2-year goal, you know, whatever somebody would want to do. And he said, but also he had another thing where before you started all that, you'd write down the things you've already accomplished, because by putting those already on your list, you're kind of like, it doesn't feel so overwhelming to accomplish the new goals. So the new goals are to fill a case with one of these hard cases with all the knives I made. So my 3 goals that I already accomplished was the friction folder, the liner lock folder, and then I had decided, well, I can just throw this in there and call it done. I thought, no. I want to make a new blade for this, so I can, of course, create content. and honestly, it does look a lot. Doesn't it look a little more with it? And don't get me wrong, this thing is, you know, this used to look a lot better. It was a lot bigger. But that edge ain't going nowhere, baby. Look at that. Woo! So this is a goal that I established, and I decided that I now have the case here. So here's the case. So every time I pull the case out, it's going to be kind of a joyous occasion, because it means that I got that means I got a new knife done. Yeah. So there's the case. And so I got, of course, the first liner lock that I did in 2006. I got the friction folder that I did. I added a tech lock to it that I did back in 2018. So anyway, I'm just going to try to test the waters a bit here. Yes, it closes. Okay. So, oops. Don't get all janky on me, guys. Come on. Okay, so, and of course, part of that tradition, I decided will be cutting the new foam with the knife that's about to be entered into the case. So let's see. These are pretty cool little, these are like little cubes that come off of here. They're already partially cut. And it's a good job cutting those, at least. So okay, so that's kind of part of the thing, cutting out the new foam. So this goes into the list of goals already attained. Okay, so the next one to come out will be a new goal, will be a new folder. So I'm thinking I'm going to do a lock back. Already done a friction folder. I'm thinking another liner lock. I don't know if it'll be a titanium frame, but I'm thinking maybe an alternate liner lock, like a small frames. Just happened to see this here. It's one of those little ball bearings. Can you see that? Can you see that little guy? It's one of those little ball bearings. That's when I discovered I couldn't use a ball bearing on that blade as a detent, because the blade was ground so high. I had to put it on the outside. Knife that I had in the mix years ago, I wanted to do a larger stainless steel liner lock based off of a Boy Scout knife or a rancher knife, but have it liner lock, but have it more of like a not like a dagger, but like a miniature bow. I might be doing 15 knives by the time this exercise is done. So anyway, just decided to have a little fun this evening, and I'm going to close the case so I don't get the cat. Don't worry about the haters, just let the haters worry about you. All right, and see you on the next one.